Hello and welcome to Module 2, where we'll talk about what is the meaning of life. This is perhaps the most difficult question that philosophy asks. What is the meaning of life? Almost all of the great philosophers have considered this question, and many of them have even offered an answer, even though the question of the meaning of life may not require or even allow for a specific answer. In the book of Ecclesiastes of the Old Testament of the Hebrew Scripture, the author, King Solomon, asks, "What's the point?" Here are some of the words of that teacher, the son of King David, the king of Jerusalem. He says, "Meaningless, meaningless," says the teacher, "utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. So I hated life because the work that was done under the sun was grievous to me, all of its meaningless like chasing after the wind. But let's hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." So for Solomon, you see his frustration, you hear it in the words, but you see he did have a conclusion. To guide you in your studies this week, we must first inquire about the meaning of the word meaning. Meaning is actually found within context of a language. A word has meaning simply because of its sense in our language. Nihilism is the view that life is absurd and has no meaning. However, the one who devotes his life to this view will actually refute all other meanings of life. So in essence, the nihilist does have a meaning of life. His meaning is to refute all of the other meanings. Now, there are four main categories in which we classify the meanings of our lives. One would be our children, because some believe children give life meaning. Two would be our God, or our relationship with the divine. Three would be the afterlife, as some search for Nirvana or for heaven. And fourth would be the nihilist viewpoint, that there is no meaning at all. Now be careful when you're reading about metaphors. A metaphor is a comparison in which one thing is said to be another, like she is the walking dictionaries, as you see here. Since the question of life's meaning does not always have a specific answer, sometimes a philosopher will use a metaphor to help create meaning. For example, life is like a camera. Just focus on what's important. Capture the good times, develop from the negatives, and if things don't turn out, just take another shot. Or life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Good old Forrest Gump. Or life is like a buffet. You can have anything you want, but just don't put on your plate more than you can handle. And life is like the ocean. It can be calm and still or rough and rigid. But in the end, it's always beautiful. Life is like monkey bars. You have to let go if you want to move on. Our textbook interests us in these metaphors. Life is a game, a story, a tragedy, or a comedy. Maybe your life is a mission to do good or to create art and adventure. Maybe your life is around disease or even desire or searching for nirvana or heaven. Maybe your life is altruism. Altruism is when you act for the benefit of others, even if there's no benefit for yourself. Maybe your life is honor or maybe suffering. Maybe your life is an investment or relationships. George Rodrigue is a New Orleans artist who gained quite a bit of fame from his blue dog paintings. The dog was fashioned after his own pup called Tiffany, and he incorporated artistic features and the legend of the loup-garou, which transformed the blue dog into a ghost watchdog of the bayou. He was later commissioned to paint a huge yellow dog in honor of the New Orleans Saints, There's a pic of myself and my son down in City Park in New Orleans by the Gold Dog. The Blue Dog even pondered the question of life's meaning. It said if you look deep into the eyes of this dog that George Roderick became famous for, that the eyes look like they're searching for the answers of the meaning of life. Well, let's look some more about these meanings of life that our metaphors may teach us. For some, such as Albert Camus, they are nihilists. They believe that there's no meaning at all. They say that life is absurd. Albert Camus had extreme political beliefs. He was an atheist, which some believe may have contributed to his belief in no meaning of life. However, believing that life has no meaning, as I said, is actually meaning in itself. And games. Life is considered a game by some. Games can be competitive. You have to play to be in the game of life. Some games are solo games and some are team sports. Some games require superiority and some just kill time. Some games aim at hurting other people. So to think of life as a game is to ensure that we just don't take life too seriously. Life can also be a story. Our life is like a detailed script. It's not the end or the beginning that necessarily gives it meaning, but the quality of the story. Life can be a tragedy. Tragedy looks at life as serious or an unhappy process with one death. But then the Dutch philosopher Erasmus wrote a book about human life called Praise of Folly. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote about a fictional prophet called Zarathustra who said we should enjoy laughter and levity. When tragedy and comedy are combined, this is called irony or black humor. Life could be a mission. Many Christians adopt this view that life is a mission. The German poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe thought his mission was the creation of poetry. The philosopher George Hegel believed his mission was simply to clarify the meaning of the French Revolution. Some people believe life is art. This is an ideal way of thinking of life, and it's to view life as something beautiful with style and class. Life is like artwork in that it is moving and inspiring. It can be well designed or even dramatic. It can be colorful or even uninspiring. Life is a disease. Sigmund Freud held this view. The disease metaphor has been applied to modern Western civilization when we speak of affluenza. Many believe that the Western culture is too spoiled with our material possessions. Life as desire. There once was a Greek hero named Tantalus. Now Tantalus was condemned by the Greek gods. He was to be tied just out of reach of a huge bunch of grapes in a pool of water. So he spent his entire eternity reaching for these grapes. That's something that was just out of reach. The name Tantalus is where we get the word tantalize. Life can be altruism. As I said, altruism is when you want to put one's desires aside and act for the benefit of the others. Much like the life is mission aspect. Life is an honor. Now, Socrates was a great philosopher who lived for honor. But Stoicism is another branch of philosophy that says most human desires are irrational, so we should be honorable. We should live in harmony with the universe, control our passions, and live a simple life of integrity, honor, and duty. Life is nirvana. Nirvana is described as a place of perfect peace that can be attained, which is similar in nature to the Christian heaven. The Buddhists have 4 noble truths that must be achieved to reach nirvana. Life is filled with suffering and sorrow. The cause of all suffering is people's selfish desires. The way to end all the suffering is to end your desire, and the way to overcome desire and attain enlightenment is to follow what they call the Eightfold Path, or the middle way. Now, the 19th century philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer was influenced by Buddhism, with his belief that frustrations in life can be managed by detachment. He is known as one of the crankiest philosophers in Western history. There's also a reflection. Let's think of, what if a friend told you that the meaning of life is to get yours while you can? Would that be doing for others or doing for oneself? What do you think of this view of life? Would you try to talk him or her out of this position? If so, how would you do that? And last but not least, life as relationships. Philosopher George Hegel, he said that nothing great in the world has ever been accomplished without passion, and it just does take passion and time to nurture our relationships. Many people believe that what is most important in life is relationship, those which are most important to you. Now, George Hegel believed that we are all one entity, all encompassed in an all-embracing spirit of love that he considered God. So this module, you will be considering what is your meaning of life. I hope that you're able to articulate that and defend that in a good way. Keep up the hard thinking.